Every ski spot has something very special for the place. Over the Hokkaido island, you have fresh snow to ski every morning. And the best powder is inside the volcano. So you really have to know the terrain. You really have to know secret spots.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming to hear us talk about Japan and skiing in Hokkaido with my good buddy Pawel. And big thanks to Maya and the team at 57 Hours. This has been such a fun collaboration the last few years with 57 Hours. I got to meet one of the founders, Victor, at a guide meeting in the United States many years ago. It must be 5 years ago, I think. And but we had dinner and it sounded cool. And here we are 5 years later. So we're doing trips all over the world. And 57 Hours has just grown in this really cool platform where you could find a guide in Argentina or a mountain biking guide, Whistler, British Columbia, or a couple ski guides to go to Japan. So it's been really, really fun. So there's a little more about me, and I live in Seattle, Washington now. We just moved from Chamonix, France. And prior to that, we had been in Boulder, Colorado in the United States. I'm American. My dad is from Italy, so I love going back and forth to Europe, but I am an American. And I did my guide training here in the States, and now I teach avalanche courses here. I teach one in Canada every year and travel a little bit. I have my own little guide service, Vetta Mountain Guides. And then I have a journalism writing career on the side as well, or I don't know if it's on the side. Maybe my guiding's on the side. I don't know. But I've got a couple books out and the Mountain Guide Manual. And I've been a mountain guide. I started apprenticing around 2004 or 5, and then got my international certification in 2014, a little later in life than most mountain guides. But when we lived in France, I met this crazy Polish dude named Pawel, and Pawel and I hit it off, and then we started climbing and skiing and this and that, and we all survived COVID lockdowns together and whatnot, so it's been fun. Pawel's too modest to brag about himself, so I'll do a little bit of bragging, then I'll let him talk. Pawel was a very accomplished and successful lawyer in Poland before turning into a mountain guide. He's from a long tradition of alpinists and skiers in his family. So he brings that sort of Polish tradition of toughness in the mountains, but he's a smiling, fun guy, and he's a great athlete. He's finished the Ultra Trail de Mont Blanc and skied all over the world. It's just been really fun. And give everybody a little more about yourself, Pawel, if you don't mind.
Thank you very much for having me on this webinar. I'm very happy to share with you and with all participants all my experience about skiing, particularly about the Japan. As you said, we are friends since we met in Chamonix. I'm still living in Chamonix. I work there. I'm a member of the Polish and French Mountain Guide Association. Most of my time I spend, of course, in Alps around Chamonix. So it's Zermatt in Switzerland or La Grave or Alagna in Italy. These are the places, this is my playground, but every year I'm trying to do a couple of trips around the world, and one of my favorite destinations is, of course, Japan. But I like to ski a couple of weeks in a season in a little bit more wild terrain of the resorts, of the crowds. And first time I came to Japan, this was the place. It was relatively wild and very attractive for me. So we talked a bit about our plans, and we decided that we want to do a couple of trips. And the next year, since the Japan was closed last 2 years, we are hoping that in January we will go together, because it's super nice to share experience and to show the mountains some secret spots, which I had the chance to explore for last 10 years.
For one of the great things about Pawel when I got to know him is anywhere I was going in Europe, you've ever been to this, it's Pawel, oh yeah, there's a great place, and go to this little bakery and this and that. So I knew he was the guy for me, because as much as the skiing, I love, experiencing people and whatever, museums, the food, things like this. Japan just makes such a cool destination because he's got a ton of things to show. And so we've been putting together this trip, and it's been really fun. While we're talking today, we'll let Pawel share some of his, not all of his secrets, but a few of them, and we'll talk about where we're going to go. For those of us who've not been to Hokkaido, Hokkaido is the northern large island in the Japanese archipelago. We'll talk a little bit about why it snows so much there, and is it as deep as everybody says, what the skiing's like, and then of course the cultural aspects of the trip too. So the legendary hot springs, the food, what the villages are like, things like this. But we'll talk during the webinar about getting there and the gear you want to bring and things like this, because it is a colder, snowier environment. So, we want to plan for that. You're not so far away from Siberia, so it can get pretty cold. Many of you have heard the term Japow. Japow, which is a reference to, this incredible snow climate that they have in Hokkaido. You fly into Sapporo, which is the capital town. And I remember asking a buddy of mine, he had married a Japanese woman. And I said, well, is Hokkaido as beautiful as they say? And he said, if you go in the winter, you won't know because there's so much snow on the roads as you drive around, you can't see anything. And it's snowing all the time. He says, you got to go back in the summer. It is a beautiful place. And for skiers, it's fantastic because it looks like this most of the time. But, if we're sightseeing and hoping to see, they grow a lot of flowers in Hokkaido if you look at photos in the summer. But unfortunately, we won't get to see too much of that. You can see that it's just a spectacular venue. And just about every photo Pawel shared with me looked like this. You can't see the lower half of the skier. All the trees are full of snow. I mean, it just looks absolutely fantastic. Maybe, Pawel, you can talk a little bit about why Hokkaido has the snow it has. There's an overview of Japan. You can see actually the northern end of, the Japanese set of islands is actually quite far north there. You can see that's Russian Siberia right next to it like that. But maybe you can tell us why, Pawel, it snows so much there and a little bit about that.
The thing is that every ski spot has something particular. When you want to try to describe the La Grave in France, if you want to describe Chamonix or Alagna in Italy or St. Moritz, Davos, Canada, Alaska, there is something very special for the place. And when we are saying about the La Grave, then we are saying about the narrow extreme couloirs. If we talk about Chamonix, we talk about the highest mountain in Europe, great vibe of very extreme skiers together with tourists, and every place has some characteristic. And I think the Hokkaido, just to put it in one sentence, that would be the snow, the onsen, and the food, which makes the place very special. And starting from the snow, the thing is that even I'm not the meteorologist, but in general, the thing is that the very cold air from Siberia goes down south, and from south we have a lot of wet coming up, and it meets exactly over the Siberia and it meets over the Hokkaido island that cause the snowfall almost every day, so you have fresh snow to ski every morning. Of course, there are a couple of days, and we can't hide it, that every season there are the couple of days of the rain, and it may cause some turbulence in our skiing, but in general, every day we have very nice, very cold, very light snow, which is very safe. So there is no avalanche problem at all. There is no avalanche risk like in Europe or in Canada particularly, and not only because of the angle of the slopes, it's relatively low. The trees are there, but mainly because the snow is so light that it doesn't create the risk of avalanches, and we can ski without the airbags. Most of the people ski there with the airbags, but it's absolutely not necessary, so we don't have to take it with us. But in general, I would say that the snow, it's amazing, and it starts, and this I don't know why, but mainly it starts snowing around 2-3 p.m. each day during the night, and when the morning starts, there is a relatively good weather. There are a couple of days with a very stormy days, but in general, the window for skiing starts in the morning and lasts till the 2-3 p.m.
I mean, this is the stories we all hear. Is every morning you wake up in the hotel and there's another 50 centimeters of snow. It just sounds fantastic. You can see on the map here that green peninsula right next to Hokkaido. That's the little southern tip of Russian Siberia there. Vladivostok is the port city there. And the cold air comes off of Siberia and it hits all this warm, moist air coming up from the Sea of Japan. And it just decides it's going to wring itself out there over Hokkaido. It's pretty darn cool. As we said before, you can see in the center of kind of the lower center of Hokkaido, there's Sapporo, the capital. And so, most people are going to arrive into the airport there. There's a really nice organized bus system in the airport there, and you grab a bus straight up to wherever you're going to ski. As my friend warned me about, he said the snow can be a little deep. You may not see everything on the island while you're driving around. I mean, that's what certain years in Hokkaido can look like. For skiers, that's a paradise. For folks in a bus like that, maybe it's not the best. But, we're all worried about the skiing most of all, right? How's the skiing going to be? Photos like this, you can just see that, it's a lot of forest skiing there, Pawel, and not necessarily big pine trees, but more like these smaller deciduous trees.
The terrain for Europeans, when they come first time, it's a little bit complicated because we call it tree skiing, which is for as far as I know, and for my experience skiing with the Americans, it's not a problem. But for the Europeans, they always say, it's a little bit too tight. So, at the first couple of days, they feel really uncomfortable. After 2-3 days skiing in this terrain, they get a little bit more comfort. But in fact, it's not an issue because you have plenty of space. If you are a good skier, you can avoid terrain with the bamboo, and you can find big, long, open slopes to speed and to make such pictures and to feel it. There is enough open space to find nice lines.
You get 1 or 2 days a year like this where you, in the middle of your skiing, you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to drown. I have to spit out the snow or something.
This kind of skiing in Europe, in Alps, you maybe have a couple of days, maximum 5 I have during the winter. Such a snow, I can have maybe 5, sometimes 7 days. And even that, it's not like the whole day. It's like till 12, because after that, the snow's starting to get heavy, a little bit wet, wind affected. So it's not the same. When in Japan, you go there and you almost have every day, you have like really light, super cold snow. These are the pictures which I took different days, and almost every day I have this, and this is amazing thing. With this, it's completely not possible to have in Chamonix or in Alps.
Most of these photos you're showing are from days you're touring on foot, or are you using the lifts too? Because I know we have a photo and a little bit of using some of the ski areas and the pistes and things like that.
I would say that when I started to travel to Japan, I used much more the infrastructure to skiing. But nowadays, more and more important is to know the terrain quite far away from the main paths and main resorts, because around the resorts, there are so many people that after, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 hours, everything is tracked, everything is hammered, and there is no really nice terrain to ski. So you really have to know the terrain. You really have to know secret spots to find the powder. Most of the time, if you want to have a good skiing these days, you have to go and you have to do backcountry skiing a little bit from the main tracks, from the main pistes, and from the main cable cars, which doesn't make life hard, but it's just a little bit wilder. And you have to have the backcountry skiing, and you have to maybe hike sometimes a couple of hours, sometimes 1 hour, sometimes 20 minutes. It depends what you want to do. But I would say that going now these days to Japan without knowledge of the terrain, just using infrastructure, it would be losing time, because it's so crowded that basically you have to go a little bit off the resort. Mainly when we are going to do this year, we will be skiing using the infrastructure. So we are planning 2 trips. One, it would be 6 days skiing. The other one will be 8 days skiing around. And we are thinking that, in both cases, half of the days we will be using infrastructure, half of the days it will be pure backcountry.
Every once in a while, you see one of these shots of a person skiing on the volcanoes there, and it just looks amazing. It sounds like many days of the year you can't get up there. On these days where you have the sun out, it just looks incredible. So you get to ski on the volcanoes a bit?
Yes, so there are 2 volcanoes. One is near Niseko. This one is near Niseko, and it's most famous one in the area to ski. It's Mount Yotei. It looks like Mount Fuji, and it's unbelievable because it's over other mountains. It's really huge. The best part is that you ski, and the best powder is in the crater. So you ski inside the mountain, inside the volcano. You first ski up to the top, and then you ski down to the bottom of the crater, and then again you ski up, and then you come back to Niseko. And this is the really exciting experience. It was only the place where I did this skiing into the crater was in Japan, though, as you said, it's necessarily to have a nice weather because it's a long day. So you have to start very early, and you have to have very good visibility, because with the stormy day, poor visibility, it's a kind of dangerous. But it's an excellent experience, and every time I hope to ski to summit the mountain, and this is my goal, and this is our goal on each trip, that one day we will ski on the volcanoes. There is another volcano on central Hokkaido in Furano, which is also pretty demanding and also high. The nice thing about this is, you will see on the video, there is smoke and you can feel the warmth. So even if it's like really low temperature on the summit, it's pretty warm smoke. So you can warm up your hands or the feet in the boots.
So thinking about Hokkaido and skiing there, as Pawel said, his trips, he likes to move around the island. So you arrive in Sapporo, really easy bus ride. Infrastructure there is they're really geared towards English-speaking tourists. So it's easy to find the bus, and then you get up to the mountains, and then we'll switch venues. We'll ski in a different place each day, switch, sort of larger zones 2 or 3 times during the week, depending on the length of trip you do. So you get to ski a new place each day. And obviously on these really nice weather days, if you have a sunny day, that would be the day we'd go trying to ski on a volcano. Yeah, it just looks so cool. I mean, you can't count on it, getting that high every trip you go, but man, it just looks so cool.
Yeah, the thing is that it's not so often like these. You show the 2 volcanoes, one around Furano, one around Niseko, and both these days were like super sunny days, which is not quite often in January and February. I hope that on every trip there is a one day when you can do the mountains. And if you are enough fit and you are able to spend 8 hours skiing, then it's a big chance to summit one of these 2 volcanoes.
Yeah, and so that's a great segue into talking a little bit more about how a week in Japan would go working on Hokkaido and skiing there. Obviously, we're prioritizing really good skiing and things like this, but there's so much other cool stuff to do in Japan. Every day, typically, we'll go ski touring in a new place, one of Pawel's little secret stashes there, and go looking for to get everybody a photo like this where all you can see is your arms and your ski poles. It'd be cool. And so we'd switch venues. We stay in like a 3-star or so hotel during the week. Some of them will stay 2 nights in the same place and travel each day to a different ski area, and then switch once or twice between some of these places like Otaru and Asahikawa, things like this. And Pawel has a nice itinerary in his mind, so we're organizing that right now. In addition to the skiing, there's the Onsen, which are these hot springs. We'll show you a couple of images of those, and then these quaint little villages. And obviously the food in Japan just sounds incredible. The years Pawel was getting some ramen noodles.
Just before this is what is very important, what you said. When the guys are thinking about their work, what they want to do, they want to search for the best snow and the best terrain. And our ambition when we work together with Rob is that every day we are searching for the new spot, new place, and we are trying to do each day something completely new. And it refers to the terrain, to the lines which we pick up. And no matter whether we work together in Italy, in Alanya, if we work in La Grave, or we work in Chamonix, Zermatt, or Japan, our focus when we discuss the day before, the evening, and the mornings, when we check the weather and the conditions, we always put a lot of effort together. And we have a big discussion every morning and every evening before day of skiing, where we are going to today and the next day. What is our plan? For us, the most important, since we are skiing in many places, and for us, even for ourselves, we want to find something attractive. And our ambition is to show the people just the best snow and the best ski lines. Together with this variety of the terrain or the mountains where we ski, we want to make the variety of the spots where we hang out, when we set up, where is our accommodation. I'm not the very big fan of the obvious places. I rather prefer to go to the places which are the representative for the cultural aspect of island of Hokkaido. And my experience is that there are 3 best places treated as a base for the trips around these bases. We start first with Otaru, where we have access to the couple of secret spots and to the one obvious like Rusutsu and Niseko. This is the town which is the oldest one with the most traditional place on the whole island, where you can touch a little bit of old Japan with a great food, with a great architecture, with a little bit of art. Then we move to Asahikawa, which is on our way. And again, this is another base where we start and we ski from there a couple of places. since this is the amazing town, which we don't have it in Europe. You live in the like a big city, and in the same time you have very easy access to the mountains. Asahikawa gives the opportunity to experience this Japanese modern big city. And it's exciting because it's not with a contradiction of skiing the next day. And our third base on our trip, it's always Furano, which is a little bit more quiet than both first places. And from there, one day we go to the mountain hut, and the other 2 days we go to the resorts around there. And of course, in every of these spots, it's an excellent food. It's authentic Japanese food, and you are always surprised how delicious it is.
Yeah, the food looks incredible. I know one of the draws, obviously, in Japan for me will be the food, and I'm looking forward to it. The other big draws, most of us have seen these images of these monkeys in the hot springs in Japan, and they crawl in there in the winter. The snow is falling on their heads and the steaming water. And the word for these traditional places is onsen. And here's some more different kind of monkeys, ski monkeys in the hot springs there. This is another thing that people really do every day after skiing is, jump in the hot water. And so I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, we go to the best onsen after each day of skiing. We start the day around 7:30, 8 o'clock. We go to the spot for skiing. We finish around 3. This is for safety to finish the day before dark and before temperatures goes really low. So after around 3 o'clock, 2:30, 3:30, we go to the onsen. And there's always nice to experience because there are 2 types of onsen. The one which are organized with the ticketing. You get the towel there, you change there, and you soak into the water. And there are some places where are like totally wild places that you put your ski pants and the jacket on the stone and you just jump into the water. And mostly you are alone there. So it's super nice to experience these 2 types. But this is the must to do it every day. It's relaxing. It's a part of the culture. It's super nice experience. Together with the snow and the food is the third element what makes the trip really one of the best trips in our lives, let's say. As you said, I skied many places in the world, and I always want to go at least once a year to go to Japan and experience that. And if I'm not there, like last 2 years when it was closed, I'm missing the food, I'm missing the onsen, I'm missing the snow, I'm missing the very friendly atmosphere around there and very open people. You also can meet very interesting skiers, like icons of skiing. It's like the element which makes even you special when you are there. So combination of these elements, which of course onsen it's a very important part of that, makes the trip really interesting.
It sounds just fantastic. It really is one of these, Pawel and I have both skied in Svalbard with the polar bears and things like this. And Hokkaido is definitely one of those spots. So if we get to do this next year all together, it'd be super fun. That gives you a bit of an overview about how a week would run, fly in and out of Sapporo. And then we change venues a couple times. We ski tour in a different area every day and then try to hit a different onsen as well. And then have some of that incredible food at night. Hokkaido has its own demands as well. And so, with this much powder falling from the sky every night, we really recommend that people bring a fatter ski. And so Pawel, in sharing some of the ideas with me, is saying around 110 millimeter underfoot or 110 millimeter waisted ski is ideal. Anything from, 108 maybe up to 115 or something. But really you want a dedicated powder ski. And like Pawel said, we'll be ski touring mostly. So Pawel, I think in the past you've had people show up with like a fatter ski, but with a bit of a heavy binding. So you're saying that if they can bring a setup with a touring binding or a tech binding, it's ideal.
Yeah, tech bindings are much better. And since what we were talking, since like now it's more and more people around and it's crowded and the most people are just staying very close to the resort and it's after 2 hours hammered everything around, you need to go a little bit off the resort of the obvious basic first choice. You really want to find and to ski on your own terrain. And for that, it's much better to have this technic bindings, pinned up bindings, since it's much lighter and the snow is so light that you don't have to be worried that, the bindings are not enough strong to hold you on the fat skis, which is the very often argument which appears in Alps, in Chamonix. In Hokkaido, it's absolutely not the problem.
Yeah, I think Pavel's point is great. This binding here you see is only weighs 200 grams. So it's, probably weighs 1/3 of what a big heavy Frisky Tecton or a Kingpin or something like that. So one other consideration Pavel warned me about was because the snowpack there is so cold, being close to Siberia, some of the European skin glue is formulated for a little bit warmer temperatures and a little bit more humidity. And so Pavel really strongly recommends a black diamond or maybe a G3. G3 is Canadian, black diamond's American skin, because the glue is formulated for a little bit colder, a little bit drier environment. Those are just these little considerations will make your life much, much better. And then of course it's cold. This is not Japan, but this is a shot of me skiing in Rogers Pass in Canada this year, but I have on my big puffy. So I thought I'd throw it in there, but having a big warm jacket for, really cold days or riding a chairlift or transitioning from the uphill to the downhill, a big puffy jacket can be great, and some nice warm gloves, So it's definitely a colder ski environment. So you just want to make sure you're ready for it. It's midwinter, you're close to Siberia. And then traveling around, you'll get from Sapporo up to the mountains on a bus, and then Pavel and I will meet you, and then we're transferring between ski spots and hotels. And so it's nice to have a big duffel bag to put all your gear in. One of the things Pavel and I have discovered from traveling quite a bit over the years is having these luggages with the wheels on them. It's really convenient in the airport. It takes a lot of weight off your back and whatnot. But the luggage itself is often weighs as much as 10 pounds, 3 kilos. And then it's a little bit difficult to put in and out of a van if you're with a bunch of other people. So often we'll say, take a duffel bag like this. It's a little bit lighter. It packs down a little bit smaller. And it's a little bit of a hassle when you're checking in. But then once you're on the road, we find that it's quite a bit nicer. You can get about a 60 or 70 liter duffel, and then maybe a soft ski bag without the wheels. And then you'll have a little more weight too. You can bring an extra sweater. And this is a little bit of an overview. We're going to have 2 different trips next year. Pavel and I, he really convinced me to go for at least 2 trips just because he says it's so great. So I'm excited. And one of the trips is going to be a little shorter. So I think we'll ski for 6 days. The other trip will ski for a full 8 days. So there'll be a little bit of travel time on either side of that. We'll have much more information to come, but right now in 57 hours, you can find the particulars and overview really, and then we'll get into details later. I think the shorter trip is going to be about 3,300 US. The longer trip will be slightly more. The group will be 8 guests and 2 guides. So it's nice. It allows us to keep an eye on everybody, and our groups are a little smaller. We'll take care of most of the logistics. The cost of that will cover hotels, guiding, transportation between venues, things like that. Stuff that's not going to be covered would be food during the trip and lift tickets for those days where we might get on the ski hill. But the ski hills there, Pavel tells me happily, are quite a bit less expensive than the United States, maybe a little more than Europe. But, a ticket for the day at one of these places might be $70 US, so 60 euros. But if you're interested, we'll have a bunch more information on our individual websites, but you can find more at 57hours.com and keep in touch with us through that. Everybody, thanks for being on the webinar. Would love to see you skiing. Thanks for doing that, and keep in touch.
Thank you very much.